Hello there, I am Sudheer Kumar and I will be presenting here on multi-point fuel injection systems as a part of Automotive Systems course at IIT Delhi. So this will be the outline I will be following through this presentation, which is Introduction to Fuel Injection, its history and evolution, and Introduction to MPFI system, and working of MPFI systems, and what are the components and sensors used in MPFI and their working, and what are different types of MPFI systems, and finally what are the advantages and disadvantages of MPFI. So as we know, we need the fuel injection system to ensure that the proper mixing of air and fuel should be there in the combustion chamber and the ratio should be proper, so that we can get better efficiency and low emissions and we can get the supply of power on demand. There are many types of fuel injection systems available from the early days, such as carburetors and throttle body systems and direct injection systems and multi-point fuel injection systems. Carburetors uses mixing of air and fuel, and it converts of fuel into fine droplets and mixes it with air, but it fails to optimize the fuel air mixture ratio in the cylinders, so it gives less efficient injection. The next is throttle body fuel injection systems, which injects the fuel to the central location in the intake manifold. After that came multi-point fuel injection systems, which uses atomization of fuel by pumping it through the nozzle. Different injection for different cylinders is there, and hence there are low emissions. The next is direct gasoline injection systems, which injects the fuel directly into the combustion chamber. It is even more efficient and less emittive. MPFI systems injects fuel into the intake ports just upstream. As you can see in the figure, the injection of fuel is just upstream the intake valve. MPFI system injects fuel in the individual cylinders based on the commands it gets from the computer. It results in a better power balance among all the cylinders. The MPFI is an advanced version of carburetor in the sense of mixing, as it mixes the air-fuel ratio in a proper manner based on analyzing the inputs it gets from the sensors, it gets from the computer, which gets the inputs from different types of sensors, as throttle position sensor, coolant temperature sensor, oxygen sensor, intake air temperature sensor, and there is an electric motor to drive the fuel pump. And based on the power needed, the quantity of fuel is decided. As we can see here, this is the Vega engine, in which we can see that there are 4 injectors and there is a common fuel line going, and there is pressure regulator at the end of this, and this fuel line is coming from the fuel filter, which is connected to the fuel pump and which is connected to the fuel tank of the vehicle. In this slide, as we can see that clearly see that this is the common fuel line which is supplying the fuel, and in this picture we can see that this is type of injectors are used in vehicles. There are different components of MPFI. The one is air intake system, which includes air filter. Air filter is used to filter the intake air, and there is mass flow sensor, which senses the mass flow rate of the air coming in, and throttle body is used to control the air flow in the intake. The next is fuel delivery system. Fuel delivery system has a fuel pump which pumps the fuel and sends it to the pipeline, and there is pressure regulator system which regulates the pressure of the fuel line and keeps the pressure always higher than the ambient pressure. The third is injector. Injector has a nozzle and a solenoid. When the solenoid is energized, there is a plunger, so the plunger gets pulled and the ball valve gets space to inject the fuel. And the third is electronic control system. The electronic control system has the following control systems, which are fuel injection control system. There is a specified speed at all times, so the idle speed control system. And there is fuel pump control system, which controls the pumping of the fuel. And there is ignition control system, which controls the spark timing and the ignition inside the combustion chamber. And there is radiator fan control system, which controls the switching of radiator fan. And the fourth one is emission control system, which has air injection. So the secondary air is injected into the exhaust as to the half burnt or the semi burnt or the unburnt hydrocarbons can be burnt easily. And the second one in this is exhaust gas recirculation, which does the part of recirculating the gas in the system. The third one is catalytic converter, which converts the more emittive, such as NOx and hydrocarbon elements, into the less emittive components. So here are some sensors used in MPFI, which includes exhaust gas sensor, intake manifold pressure sensor, a throttle position sensor, engine coolant temperature sensor, an airflow sensor, an inlet air temperature sensor, a crankshaft position and RPM sensor, vehicle speed sensor. So what really happens in this case of MPFI is that when the ignition switch is switched on, the electric supply from the battery is passed to all the sensors, ECU and fuel pump and the starter motor. And when the engine starts cracking, the starting motor signal sensor is activated and sends signal to the ECU. Now fuel to the engine is increased to start the engine easier. The throttle position sensor is activated by the ECU and the throttle valve is opened according to the acceleration and the engine temperature. The engine ignition signal sensor analyzes the signal and a spark is produced at the correct timing. Then the pressure of oxygen in the exhaust gas is analyzed by oxygen sensor and signal are sent to the ECU. The amount of air-fuel mixture is controlled by the ECU through throttle position sensor and air intake sensor. So this results in a better fuel injection. So there are different types of MPFI systems. One is simultaneous MPFI system, which has the injection is done together in all the cylinders. The next one is sequential, in which the direct injection is done into the individual cylinders against their own power strokes. The third one is group MPFI systems, which is commonly used in V engines, in which the injection is done in pairs, in cylinder pairs. So let's discuss about advantages and disadvantages of MPFI. In the case of MPFI, the more power is generated than the carburetor because of the accurate mixing, which gives the negligible power difference in each cylinder. And MPFI systems are responsive when there is sudden acceleration or deceleration, and because of the proper mixing and air-fuel ratio, the low emissions are there. And so because of the optimal fuel consumption, it gives better mileage and it has better and high volumetric efficiency than the previous fuel injection systems. There are some disadvantages also of MPFI, which includes it is a complex and costly system and it requires more space, so the hood height of the car is little bit higher in this case. And one disadvantage is some fuel waste is there when some of the fuel doesn't enter the combustion chamber. And one big disadvantage is we need the heat control system in the manifold. It's all about MPFI systems here. Thank you.